Okay, guys. So let's get started with variables, right? So I told you that variables is a very important and a fundamental, building block of any computer program, right? So why do you even need variables, right? So let's say you are writing a program. You will be operating on some kind of data. You will have data and you will be manipulating the data, storing the data, accessing the data, and perform various kind of operations on that data, right? So let's say one thing that you can do is, let's say you are dealing with 100, right? So wherever you want to write 100, just write 100 as it is in the program, right? Let's say you want to print 100, just print 100. Let's say you want to add 100 to a number, just do a plus 100, right? So whatever you want to do, write the data as it is. But this is very, very inconvenient, guys, right? Okay, let's say the age of a person is 18. So wherever you want to refer to the age, you will be writing 18. So that is a problem, right? So you write 18 here, you write 18 here, you write 18 here, you write 18 here. Now let's say 1 year later, you want to change the age to 19. So what you will do? Every place you will have to go and you will have to change it to 19, right? So writing data as it is, that is not a very convenient thing to do, right? You don't want to write data as it is. Ki boss, जहाँ पे भी 18 use कर रहे हो, just write 18 as it is. Wherever you are using 100, write 100 again and again and again. That is something that we don't want, right? So in maths, we have seen something known as this, right? आप ऐसा कुछ देखियो x square plus 2x plus 5. And when I say x is equal to 5, so it means that wherever you see x, you plug in the value of 5 for x, right? So this is what x is a variable only, right? And x has the value of 5. So wherever you see x, you just substitute the value 5 for that. So we have seen variables in mathematics as well. Okay. So same is the concept in programming. What do I say is, boss, it is very inconvenient for us to write data as it is, right? So jahan pe bhi 100 use karna, you just write 100 as it is. Wherever you want to write 18, you write 18 as it is, right? That is a problem, okay? So your data doesn't have a meaning. If somebody looks at this 18, usko kaise pata chalega ki what use is this 18 of? Or let's say when you want to change 18 to 19, you have to go to 20 different places where you have written 18 and change it to 19. So boss, we don't use data directly as it is. We store them in variables and then we use variables to access that particular data. Okay. So in mathematics, we have seen, let's say you have expressions like these and somebody says x is equal to 5. So it means that whenever you see x, plug in the value 5. So x is nothing but a variable. Okay. And x is holding the value 5. So variables are a very, very important part of your program. Why? Because variables contain data. Think of variables like, they are containers inside which you can store your data. Okay. And whenever you want to access that particular data, you just need to access that variable and you will get access to that particular data. Okay. So variables are a very, very fundamental building blocks of computer programs, and variables contain data. Okay. So now the next question you will ask me, hey Adarsh, you told us all about variables, right? But how do I make variables? How do I store data? Ye sab bhi batao, hai na? So let us try to understand how do we make variables and how do we store data, right? And what exactly happens in memory. And here we will talk about two very, very important concepts also. So guys, whenever you want to whenever you want to make any variable, right? Or let's say you want to store some value in a variable, right? So what we generally do is we write something like this. Let's say int x is equal to 5. Okay. So let us try to understand what is the meaning of this entire statement. What are the multiple parts of this statement and what is happening in the memory? Okay. So see guys, this has two parts, right? This left part where you write int x, this is known as declaration. This is known as declaration. And this right part where you are assigning a value to the variable, this is known as initialization. Okay. So guys, how it actually works is, think of it like this. See, this equal to sign that you see now, single equal to, this is known as the assignment operator. Okay. Single equal to programming mein kya hota hai? This is basically your a single equal to that you see, right? This is your assignment operator. So what does it do? It takes the value on the right hand side and assigns it to the variable on the left hand side. So what will happen, guys? In memory, your situation will be something like this. The boss, in a particular cell, your data 5 will be stored. and X will be a label to this particular cell. Okay. So what is X, guys? X is a label. Think of it, guys, that X is a container that is containing or storing this value 5. So in memory, your picture will be ki boss, in a block of memory, you have 5 stored and X is a label on this container. Think of it that this is a container inside which you have your data 5 stored, and X is basically a label which is pointing to this particular container. So if I say print X, if I say system.out.println X, then what will be printed? The value that is stored inside the container X, that will be printed. That is 5 will be printed on the screen. So you will see me using something like this, SOP. This is just a shorthand notation. Bar system.out.println. See, every time it is not possible for me to write a system.out.println in PPT, right? So that is why sometimes I write SOP. So whenever I write SOP, understand that I am saying system.out.println. So now if I say SOP X, it will print the value of X, that is 5, right? So now wherever you access 5X in the code, right? Wherever you write X in the code, automatically the compiler will know that X contains the value 5. So wherever you write X, 5 will be substituted for X. So X is a variable. So guys, what is the implication of memory? What is happening in the memory? This is happening. The boss, in a cell of memory, the data 5 is stored and X is the label or X is the variable that is pointing to this value 5. So whenever you access the variable X, the value of the variable 5, that will be printed. Okay. Now, you know, guys, there are two parts to this statement that I just now told you, right? When I say int X is equal to 5, this left part int X is known as declaration of the variable, declaration, right? And the right part where we are assigning the value, we are assigning a value to the variable for the first time. This is known as initialization. So let us try to understand what is the meaning exactly of this. See, guys, what do you exactly say in declaration? I am telling the compiler, hey compiler, please reserve the space. Dhyan se suno, guys. There is a very big memory, right? Very big memory you have, right? So what are we saying in declaration? Declaration mein we are reserving space in the memory. So I am telling the compiler, hey compiler, can you please reserve space in memory? How much space? Space that is sufficient to hold an integer data. Okay. So I am telling, hey compiler, see what I am telling in declaration, hey compiler, can you reserve some space in memory for me? How much space? Space sufficient to hold an integer. So what will the compiler do? The compiler will reserve some space for you in memory that is sufficient to hold an integer. And can you label that space as X? So X will be pointing to this particular space. X is a label to this space. And then in the initialization part, I am telling, assign the value 5 to this particular space. So X will now be storing a value of 5. So what is declaration? Declaration is like you are reserving space in the memory, right? So I am telling, hey compiler, can you please reserve space in memory that is sufficient to hold an int? Int means an integer data type, right? Please reserve space in memory sufficient to hold an integer data type and put the label of that space as X. And boss, inside that space, can you please store the value 5? So this part is the declaration part, right? Int X. So declaration may we are telling the compiler to reserve space in memory for holding a particular data type, let us say an integer, and then we give the name to that particular or the label to that particular space. And in initialization, we are assigning the value. Okay, we are assigning the value to that particular space for the first time. So we are giving the value 5 to the variable X for the first time. That is initialization. So what is declaration, guys? Declaration is you are reserving space in the memory for a particular data type and you tell what is the name or what is the label of that particular variable. What is the name of the variable or the label of that particular space. Okay. And then in initialization, we store a value for the first time in that particular variable. Okay. So this is declaration. This is initialization. So whenever you write a statement like this, okay, int a is equal to 10, what happens? First of all, you are telling the compiler, hey compiler, can you please reserve the space? How much space will the compiler ask? Compiler पूछा कितना space reserve करना? How much space do you want me to reserve? I say, can you please reserve the space sufficient to hold an integer? Please reserve the space sufficient to hold an integer. So the compiler will reserve space for you that is sufficient to hold an integer. And then it will label the space as A. So A will be pointing to this particular space. Okay. And then I will say, please store the value 10 inside this variable. So 10 will be stored here. So now whenever you print A or whenever you want to access A, 10 will be printed. Right? That is what is happening in the memory. And this statement int A is equal to 10, right? You are doing declaration and initialization at the same time. Okay. In the same line, you are doing both a declaration as well as initialization of the variable. This left part is the declaration. This right part is the initialization. Okay. Now, okay, you tell me, okay, Adarsh, you have declared and initialized the variable. What if I want to change the value of this A to something else? Then you simply have to do, see, A is equal to 5. Let's say do A is equal to 1. So what will happen, guys? How does this assignment operator work? It takes the value on the right hand side, 5, and it will store this value in the variable A. So whatever was the contents of A, that will get overwritten and 5 will be now stored in the variable A. So now if you print A, the value 5 will get printed and not 10. Okay. So this is basically your declaration and initialization. And when you later update, you are doing an assignment. Okay. So you are assigning newer values to the variable A. So what is declaration, guys? Declaration is like that you are reserving space for your variable for the first time, right? And declaration only needs to be done once. आप एक बार declare कर दिए ना, उसके बाद you don't have to write int every time, right? You can just write the variable name and update the value. So this is a declaration. This is initialization. Initialization is the first time you are assigning value to that variable. That is your initialization. And later on, you can update the value of that variable. Okay. But declaration needs to be done only once. Okay. Similarly, guys, I ask you one thing. Let me add some slides. Okay. So see, guys, why declaration is important? Declaration is very important because memory is limited, right? And you want to reserve space in memory before you are able to use that. You know? Boss, when you go for a vacation in a hotel, right? What do? You have to book a room first, right? First of all, you have to reserve space for yourself and then only you can use that room. Similarly, if you want to store something in memory, first of all, you have to reserve space in memory. So declaration, first of all, does the reserving of the space, right? And once the space is reserved, initialization stores the value in that particular space, right? And later on, you can update the value of the variable, whatever you want to do. Okay. Now, I ask you one question, guys. What should happen first? Let's say, see, you can also do something like this. Okay, you can also separate, see, in here what we have done the declaration and initialization in the same line. Okay, declaration and initialization have happened in the same line, but we can even do declaration and initialization in separate lines. What do I mean when I say that? See, let's say int y semicolon. This is the declaration of this variable. And later on, I can do an initialization whenever I want. Okay. So now this is the declaration part. Okay. And this is the initialization part. So you can do a declaration and initialization in the same line. You can also do a declaration and initialization in different lines. That is not a problem. But guys, I ask you one thing. Can you do declaration after initialization? Or should you do a declaration always before initialization? Tell me, guys. पहले क्या होना चाहिए? Before or after? Declaration should be before or after initialization? Logically. Think logically, guys. Declaration is reserving the space and initialization is storing value in that space. So, guys, ऐसा सोचो, when you go to a hotel, first of all, you need to reserve space. Then only you will be able to use that particular space. So, similar thing happens in memory. First of all, you have to do a declaration. So, what does the declaration do? You will tell the compiler, hey compiler, can you please reserve the space? How much space? Can you reserve the space sufficient to hold an integer? Int matlab integer, right? So can you reserve the space sufficient to hold an int? So let's say an integer takes 4 bytes. So what will the compiler do? The compiler will reserve 4 bytes of memory for me and it will put the label y to this particular memory location. So declaration always needs to be done before initialization. Okay. So what does declaration do? It reserves the space in memory and then you can utilize that space later to store your values. Okay. And then when you do a later initialization, you store the value 5 here, right? 5 is the value. It is taken and stored in the variable y. Sorry. Okay. Now, if you want to update, let's say, can you add 10 to the value of y, right? I want y to contain 15 now. So what will I write? y is equals to y plus 10. What happens when I do something like this? Guys, try to understand. See, assignment operator, ये जो assignment operator है ना, this always works from the right to the left. So first of all, evaluate the expression of the right hand side, right? So guys, y is containing the value 5, right? So what is this right side expression? 5 plus 10 is 15, right? So the value of this right hand side is 15. So this value 15 will be taken and it will be stored in the variable y. So automatically the value of y will get updated to 15. So if I do something like y is equals to y plus 10, in a sense, what I am doing, I am adding 10 to the already stored value in x or y, right? But how do you understand this? Let's say y is equal to 10, y is 10, right? And I say y is equals to y minus 5. So what will happen, guys? See, y is initially containing a value 10. When you say y is equals to y minus 5, now first of all, the right hand side expression is evaluated. So what is the value of y? 10. 10 minus 5 is 5, right? So the right hand side expression evaluates to 5. So this value 5 will be taken and this will be assigned to the variable y. So automatically this 10 gets removed and 5 gets stored in the space of y. Okay, so this is how we can update the variables by doing operations, right? But very, very important thing, first of all, you need to do a declaration and then only you can do an initialization. So here in this way, you can do a declaration in a different line, initialization in a different line. And then whenever you do an update, you are basically updating the value of the variable or you are assigning newer and newer values to the variable. That is different, okay? Similarly, in this case, you can do the declaration and initialization in the same line as well. And later on, if you want, you can update the value of the variable, okay? But guys, it is very important that declaration can be done only once. When you go to a hotel, you reserve the room once only. Na baar baar reserve thodi karte ho. Let's say today you reserve a room for yourself, right? You can also stay there. Your parents can also stay with you, right? So as long as the capacity is not violated, you don't need to, reserve the room again and again. So declaration of a variable is done only once, right? When you do a declaration, space is reserved in memory for that variable. Now you just need to update the value of the variable, do whatever you want to do with the variable, but you don't need to declare the variable again. So declaration always happens once. So what is the general idea of declaration? First of all, we write the data type. See, just compare it with this, right? First of all, we write the data type. Then we write the name of the variable. Then I write the variable name. Okay. Then we put an assignment operator. And then we write the value that we want to store. So what will happen, guys? The compiler, this is declaration and initialization in a single line, right? So the compiler will reserve space in memory sufficient to hold this particular data type, right? So in our case, it was an integer, right? And then what will happen? This variable name will be a label to this particular location. And then you will basically be storing the value inside this particular location. So that is what happens in case of declaration and initialization. So boss, always you have to do a declaration before an initialization. You cannot use a variable before you do a declaration for that. And you need to always declare only once. No need to declare twice sometimes. Okay? Cool, guys. So hopefully this is making sense and how do we update the value of the variables, right? But now I have one small question to you, right? Can you not argue here, hey Adarsh, why do we want to write the data type? मेरे को int क्यों लिखना है? Can't I not always say that whenever I say a variable, reserve 10 bytes, let's say. Why do I need to say reserve the space that is sufficient to hold an integer? So whenever I make a variable, can I not reserve 10 bytes or 20 bytes always? Can anybody come up with a logical explanation? Why not? Why don't we have the same space for every data type? Why not? Can anybody come up with any explanation? Save memory. Great. See guys, what happens is whenever you are writing a code, right? Whenever you're writing any program now, you will be dealing with different kinds of data, right? There will be, numerical data. See, there can be different types of data that you deal with. What are those different kinds of data? You can have whole numbers, right? You can have integers, okay? You can have very large numbers, very small numbers, right? You can have characters. See, characters matlab A, B, C, all these characters can be there, right? So there can be different data types when you deal with your program, right? You can have numbers, you can have alphabets, you can have special characters like @ hashtag, dollar, percentage, all these operators, these symbols can be there, right? So what I want you all to understand is whenever you're writing any program, right? there are different types of data that we actually interact with, है ना? And guys, all data might not need the same amount of space. Let's say I tell you that if I am dealing with very large numbers, right? Let's say you are dealing with characters, right? Let's say you are dealing with A, B, C, you are dealing with characters, okay? So character might only take 2 bytes of space. Okay? For storing a character, only 2 bytes of space is sufficient, right? But in order to store an integer, 4 bytes of space is needed, right? So you can argue कि why not I always reserve 20 bytes? तो सारे data type में store कर सकता हूँ, right? But what will I say, you guys? Memory is a very expensive thing, right? What is memory made up of? Semiconductors, silicon wafer, and all these things. And these are very, very expensive. Also, if you see, your RAM is very limited in size, 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB. So boss, we always want to use memory as efficiently as possible. So guys, ऐसा सोच के देखो, when you are going on a vacation, right? And you are only 2 people. You are 2 people going on a vacation. Will you book a room for 2 people, or will you book a suite that can accommodate 10 people? Logically, say if you want to save money and you are an economical person, will you book a room for 2 people, or will you book an entire suite for 10 people if you are traveling 2 people only? Obviously, you will book for 2 people only, right? Why do you want to waste your money by reserving more space? भैया ज़्यादा space use करोगे तो आपका ही loss है, right? So what I am telling you, similarly, because you are economical, na, the computer also is very economical. The language also is very economical. So that is why it has been told that, boss, different data types need different amount of space. ये सब specify कर दिया गया, right? So in Java, it has been told. I will tell you all these things in detail tomorrow. But what I'm telling you is there are different data types, and every data type requires a different amount of space. And that is why when you do a declaration, it is very important for you to specify the data type so that the compiler knows, okay, your data type is a character, so I need to reserve 2 bytes of memory. If your data type is an integer, I need to reserve 4 bytes of memory. Okay, so that is why we have these different data types. That is why there exists the need for these data types, right? Because we want to utilize memory in a more conservative and a more efficient fashion. Okay, so different data types, different space requirements. So you can reserve that much amount of space only. Okay, that is why we have different data types into existence. Okay, so now if I talk about the different data types, so what we will do, guys, is we will talk about the different data types that exist. Okay, and then we'll go to some problem solving, and then we'll try to wrap up the class. It's 10:40. So I think it will take 10-20 minutes for sure, right? So guys, in Java, there are 8 primitive data types. I just now told you that, you need the concept of different data types, right? Because every data does not require the same amount of space. So ideally what we have done is we have categorized them into different data types. Hey, integer requires 4 bytes of space. Character requires 2 bytes of space, something like this, right? So that is why there is a need for these different data types. So in Java, we have 8 primitive data types. 8 primitive data. You can read more about that. I will tell I'll touch upon the very basic aspects of this. So what are the 8 primitive data types? See, guys, when you deal with data, you can deal with whole numbers. And when I say whole numbers, what do I mean? 1, 2, 8, 10, -10, -15. All these numbers you can deal with, right? So for whole numbers, we have 4 different data types. What are they? These are byte, okay? Then you have a short, then you have an int, and then you have a long. So these are the 4 data types available in Java that can store whole numbers, right? And what are the difference between this? A byte data type now only reserves 1 byte of space in memory. So it can only store numbers from -128 to 127, something like this, right? These are exact ranges I'm not sure of. You can have a look, right? But a byte, say if I'm telling that, hey, can you reserve the space for a byte data type? That means only 1 byte of space will be reserved in memory. And 1 byte of space may you can store numbers between -128 to 127, these numbers. So if you know that in your program, you will be dealing with these kind of numbers only, you can reserve the space for a byte. Okay. Now, what is a short data type? A short data type basically reserves 2 bytes of space. So naturally, it can store some larger numbers, right? I don't know the exact ranges. It's not important. But a short data type, when you say short data type, right, it reserves 2 bytes of space in memory. For int basically reserves 4 bytes of memory in the 4 bytes of space in the memory. Okay. And a long data type reserves 8 bytes of memory, right? All these data types are for whole numbers only. And guys, 99% of the times, whenever you are dealing with whole numbers, now you will have the data type as int, because 4 bytes is generally sufficient to store all the numbers, right? Int can store numbers from minus 2 raised to 31, say 2 raised to 31 minus 1. This is the range of numbers that integer can store and int variable can store, right? And long can store even larger numbers, right? So generally 99.99% cases of the time or 100% cases of the time, now either you will be declaring your variable as an int or you will be using a long. We never use a byte and a short. I haven't used it very frequently, to be honest, right? So int is a data type that is 4 byte space for a whole number, and long is a data type which reserves 8 bytes of space, and this is also used to store a whole number. So if you have very large whole numbers, then you can use a long data type, right? And if you have numbers that can be stored in 4 bytes, you can use an int data type. So these are the 4 data types that are used for storing whole numbers: byte, short, int, and long. Okay. Now, apart from whole numbers, you can also deal with floating point numbers. What do I mean by floating point numbers? 8.76, 3.14, all these decimal numbers, right? So what are the different data types to store these kind of numbers, right? Kya data type available hai? So guys, in order to store floating point numbers, we have 2 data types. One is float and the other is double. Okay. So what is the difference between a float and a double? So float basically reserves only 4 bytes of space, right? If I remember it correctly, right? I'm not sure. I'll share some links with you so you can read on that as well, right? But it's not important. Itna theory koi puchta nahi hai, right? So the float and double are basically both used to store decimal numbers, right? Which are, numbers followed by decimal, point, and then you have this thing, right? So what is the difference between a float and double? Double is, I think, 8 bytes. If I remember it correctly, double uses 8 bytes to store your data. So definitely double is more precise, okay? So double, if you have a double data type now, after the decimal, you have more digits, right? So naturally, if you have more number of places after the decimal, it is more precise. So if you are storing a decimal number inside a double, whenever you want more precision, you use a double data type, right? And when you don't want that much precision, you use a float data type. Both these data types can be used for storing decimal numbers. 8 point something, right? So decimal wale number aate na, point ke baad something. You can use float and double to store such kind of numbers. If you want high precision, you want more number of places after the decimal, go for a double. But if you don't care about that much about precision, you are happy with a little bit less precision also, then you can use a float data type. So float uses 4 bytes of space and double uses 8 bytes of space. So these 2 data types are for your decimal numbers. Okay. So after this, these are 6 data types, right? Then you have something known as a Boolean data type. Okay. There are certain data that can either be true or false, right? ऐसा बहुत सारा data होता है that can either be yes or no. Let's say if I ask you a question, hey, will you attend the lecture tomorrow? Your answer will be either yes, that hey, you teach good, I enjoyed, I will attend it tomorrow. Or you will say no, you don't teach well, I will not attend tomorrow, right? So your answer will be either a yes or a no, right? So there are certain data for which the value can either be true or false, either yes or no, right? So for those kind of data now, you have the Boolean data type. So if you say a Boolean data type, how much space should be reserved, guys? Can you logically tell me? If your data type can be either true or false, how much space do you think a Boolean will reserve? A Boolean data type. Anybody? Kitna bytes or kitna bits? Think very carefully, guys. 1 bit. The answer is 1 bit. Guys, if you can have this thing, right? 0 stands for false, okay, and 1 stands for true. So if you have a Boolean data type now, only 1 bit of space is reserved, only 1 bit. Because either it will be false, in that case a 0 will be stored, or it will be true, in that case a 1 will be stored. So for a Boolean data type, only 1 bit of space is reserved in the memory. Okay. And what is another data type, guys? Char. Char is another data type that we will be talking about. What is char, guys? Char is used for storing characters, right? A single character. So what do? You can store either a character A or a character hash, any character that you see on the keyboard, right? Character 3, okay? So a character you can store in a char data type. Okay, so how much space is reserved for the character data type? 2 bytes of space are reserved in the character data type. So any character, right? A, B, C, D, F, G, hashtag, exclamation mark, a single character you can store inside a character data type. Okay. So these are the 8 primitive data types. What are the 8 primitive data types? These. See, byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, and char. These are the 8 primitive data types. Now, what do I mean when I say primitive data types? I mean to say that, boss, these are the fundamental or the built-in data types, right? These are the absolute fundamental building blocks, right? These are very fundamental data types that are already built inside Java. And every data type takes different amount of space. So what are primitive data types? Very, very fundamental, very, very basic data types which are pre-built or already built inside Java, that we call as a primitive data type. And every primitive data type has different amount of space, right? A char takes 2 bytes, a boolean takes 1 bit, an integer takes 4 bytes, and all these things, right? So that is what when I say a primitive data type. And why do we use these different data types? Because depending on what data you have, you can have a different data type, because every data type requires different amount of space. So in order to utilize space more efficiently, we have this concept of different data types. Okay. And that is why when you were doing a declaration, you had to explicitly tell your data type here. Okay. Okay, guys. So this is the basic idea behind the 8 primitive data types and why do you actually need these different data types. Okay. So let's see if folks are understanding this part. Many people might be able to if you know beforehand, but after tomorrow, everybody will be in a position to solve all these. But let's see, right? Let's try to, solve some basic problems, right? So it's 10:49 and we can continue till 11:15, I feel. So we have 20-25 minutes of time. So yeah, let's do this. Okay. Let's go to welcome to Java, right? Now it's some hands-on, coding tasks that we'll be doing. Very important to follow. Okay, guys, let's look at this problem. Welcome to Java. Welcome to the world of Java. In this challenge, you will learn how to print hello world in standard output. Okay, you already know how to print hello world, right? Let's see. Let's read this question. Complete the code by copying the 2 lines of code below and pasting them inside the body of your main method. What did I tell you? Whatever code that you will be writing it within the curly braces of the main. So main के बाद ये curly braces है. Whatever code you will write after this. Just remove this. You don't even need this, right? I'll tell you later what this is. Tomorrow I will tell you, right? So, you can write your code inside these 2 curly braces, okay? So what they are telling you to just copy paste these 2 lines and this code will be printing hello world and then hello Java. So let's do this. Let's copy paste only, but we should understand the meaning of these 2 lines before copy pasting. Now, the idea is that you should be clear with what these 2 lines are doing. So I already told you what system.out.println does. It prints to the screen and then the cursor will move to the next line. So the first line will have hello world and then in the next line you will see hello Java printed. So whatever are there in the double quotes, that is printed as it is. Okay, as it is, that is getting printed. Okay. So guys, if I run this code, what will happen? You will see the output as hello world, hello Java. See, the output will be hello world, hello Java. Okay. So what do we need to do is, see, generally here now, you have to give an input. That is a drawback of the portal. But if you want to see the output now by running the code, you have to feed a dummy input. यहाँ पे कुछ भी लिख दो and just do a run code, right? You will see the output as hello world, hello Java. That means your program is working fine. Now you will click on submit. Now let's click on submit and see. The first line is hello world, hello Java. Let's see if the test cases pass. It's a very basic problem. See, one test case that was there passed. So we have solved this problem successfully, right? So this is our first problem where we want to print hello world and hello Java to the screen. So system.out.println within double quotes, whatever you want to print to the screen, just write that. And we have done a println. So after printing, the cursor will move to the next line. So these 2 outputs are coming on 2 separate lines. Okay. Now you can read this input. There is no input for this challenge. Fine. You must print 2 lines of output. Print hello world on the first line, already printed. Print hello Java on the second line, already printed. What are some common mistakes, guys? Make sure you match the exact output required in the question. देखो, question में क्या बोला है? Comma, everything. Exact आपको लिखना पड़ेगा. Hello, comma, then space, then WORLD. Exact matching should be there. If I do a W small now, my test case will not pass, right? Because in the test case, we are checking for this exact thing. Hello, comma, space, capital WORLD, right? So you should, go for the exact output as required in the question. You should take care of the comma, take care of the space, take care of capital letter, small letter, everything like that. Okay. And make sure you use S capital in system. Yes, that is a very common mistake that people do. S small लिख दिया. That is wrong. Java is case sensitive, and in system you have to use S as capital. Okay. So this is our first code, and I am pretty sure almost everyone should be clear with this particular assignment. Is it making sense to everyone? So for people who haven't coded anything, all the people coming from non-tech background, non-computer background, this is your first introduction to coding. This is your first program that you write. Are we clear with this? Yes, pretty basic. Yes. Okay. So can we move on to a different problem? Maybe I'll encourage you all to try that. So we can spend some more time. Yes. Okay. So let's come back to our module. So we have solved welcome to Java, right? Now let's come to this problem, 5 stars maybe. Okay, guys, let's see. See, guys, in this task, this is a question given to you. In this task, you have to print 5 stars vertically. Dekho, vertically 5 stars print karna hai, and then you need to print 5 stars horizontally. Okay, thoda gadbad diya hai. This is horizontally 5 stars, and then you have to print 5 stars vertically in different lines, right? So you understand, I hope. See, what is first line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 stars you will print like this, and then you need to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Is the question clear? You have to print 5 stars horizontally, and then you need to print 5 stars vertically. This is how the output should be looking like. Okay. And see, print 5 horizontal stars separated by 1 space followed by 5 vertical stars. So what is happening, guys? See, how is the output looking like? In the first line, you have star, then you have a space, then star, space, star, space, star. Okay, so all the stars are separated by a space. So this is 5 stars on the horizontal line. And then I need 5 stars on 5 separate lines down. Okay, vertically. Okay. Is the question clear to everyone? Is the question making sense? क्या करना है आपको समझ आ रहा है? Yes. Can you guys try this question quickly? We will just be using the concepts that we have learned today, right? Nothing out new. Okay. So what do we do, guys? First of all, see, we don't need to use loops and all these things, right? अभी एकदम basic, आपको कुछ नहीं आता, आपको आता है सिर्फ system.out.println, right? So what will I do, guys? Just 1 second. Okay. System.out.println. So what will I print, guys? Within quotes, I have to print 5 stars in this line. So star, space, star, space, star, space, star, space, star. 5 stars are printed. And after this, the cursor will go to the next line. And then I want to print 5 stars in 5 different lines, right? So what I will do? System.out.println star. Okay. So star will be printed in the line and the cursor will go to the third line. Then again, I will print system.out.println star. Okay. So likewise, I will be printing the star 5 times. इसी को copy paste करते हैं. Okay. Sorry. What happened? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So guys, what will happen, guys? See, first of all, this line is system.out.println. And what will be printed, guys? On the first line, star, star, star. 5 stars will be printed with spaces in between. And because this is a println, the cursor will come to the next line. Now what do? System.out.println star. So a star will be printed and the cursor moves to the next line. Then again, you do a system.out.println star. So a star will be printed and cursor moves to next line. So 5 times you will print star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the cursor will go to the next line. So you will get the output as 5 horizontal stars and then 5 vertical stars. Take a look. This is printing 5 stars horizontally and then the cursor moves to the next line. And then you are printing 1 star in every line and moving to the next line. And this thing you are doing for 5 times. Okay. So let's try to run this and see. Acha guys, if you ever get a wrong code, now you can also do run against correct code, right? So run against correct code will tell you what is the output that is expected, this kind of an output, right? And now if you do a run code, it will run against your code. Jo code aapne likha hai na, that will run. Let's see if the output is coming fine or not for our code. But yeah, it's looking fine, right? ऐसा ही दिख रहा है, 5 stars separated by space, and then you have 5, vertical stars, right? So let's try to submit it. Okay. See, all the test cases have passed, right? So let's see. Does anyone have any problem in this same simple use case of system.out.println? Let's see. Everybody, especially people who have never done this thing, right? Single line. What are we doing in single line, guys? Single line में कुछ नहीं कर रहे. देखो, system.out.println. I am writing all the stars together in quotes, right? So whatever I was writing in quotes, that is printed, and then the cursor moves to the next line, right? So the 5 stars will be printed in a single line, and then it will move the cursor to the next line. Okay, that is how we are printing in the system. Okay, guys, just give me 1 second. I'm getting a call. One minute. Yeah, guys, sorry, I got a call. Okay, so everyone is clear with this, right? So I think we can move to the next question. Let's go to here once again. Okay. What is the next question that we can take? 1 second. 5 stars. Can we take a 5 star? What is this? We did a star pattern and 5 star. Are they the same thing? I think they are the same, right? So 5 star is same. So what is this star pattern then? 1 second, guys. Okay, let's do this, right? So in this task, you need to print a right angle triangle of height 3 and base 5. Okay. So height 3 matlab there are 3 lines and there are base 5. Matlab see, the first line will have 1 star, the second line will have 3 stars, the third line will have 5 stars. Okay. So you need to just print a right angle triangle of height 3. What do I mean by height? There will be 3 lines. The first line will consist of 1 star, the second line will consist of 3 stars, and the third line will consist of 5 stars. This is what you want to print. Okay. Okay. Star, 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 star. This is what we want to print. Okay. Very simple. Can you guys try to do it with a system.out.println very quickly? Kar paoge? I think it's pretty simple. Everybody should be able to do this now, right? You just have to print 3 times. Okay. So let's quickly do it. So what will I do? System.out.println. What do we do, guys? First line should have a single star. So within quotes, write a star. Okay. Then what will happen, guys? The next line will have system.out.println. It will have 3 stars. 1, 2, 3. Right? This is the second line. And what will the third line have? The third line will have 5 stars. That's it, guys. Okay, done. Now let's try to run the code. Just give a dummy console input. Try to run. Let's see whether our triangle is coming fine or not. Height is 3 separate lines. And the width of the triangle is 5. I don't know whether they are putting spaces in between or not. Achha, how can I check if in the actual output I want spaces or not? What I will do is, for input 1, let's run against the correct code and see if there are spaces in between the stars or not, right? Dekho guys, can you tell me, is there spaces between the stars? Is the code expecting spaces in between stars? No. So इससे मेरे को पता चल गया कि what I am doing is wrong and the test case will fail. See, there is no space in between stars, right? So remove the spaces. Star remove again. Okay. Now let's run the code. Now it should be fine. Okay. Let's submit it. Okay, all the test cases passed, right? So I hope these questions are clear to you all, right? So we just looked at three very, very basic questions, right? Where we were printing stars and, we looked at our hello world question, right? So hopefully this is clear to everyone, right? So I think we are almost done for today. So let me just, okay, I think we can talk about it tomorrow as well if you want, right?